And thank you for showing up here as well as online. We have more than 70, 75 people there. Remember that this is the last forum for this year. The next one will be in January. We don't typically meet in November and December because it's right close to holidays, the days we have for these forums. Again, thank you for showing up. We would have some updates for you, and please remember that this is your time to ask questions, and hopefully you have lots of questions for anybody who is making presentations and or other general things. We have a pretty heavy agenda today. We would start with what I gave you a heads up last time regarding the new policy from NSF and NIH later they are coming up too. Specifically NSF, last time I told you that on September 21st, they issued a policy which has to do with management, basically talking about sexual harassment and related issues. As a condition of award, the PIs and co-PIs are going to be subject to certain review, basically, in a way, if there is allegations of harassment, and the way the policies are written talks about sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, or sexual assault that PIs or co-PIs of NSF-funded projects might be accused of. There are certain restrictions in the awards, and institutions like our university have certain responsibilities now to deal with things like that. And remember that I told you that the way the policy is written and has become effective already, it is not, any PI or co-PI who gets awards now is subject to these policies, and the allegations can go way before even the award was received. So it goes back in time. The expert on campus is Wendy Del Mendo, who is the Chief Compliance Officer on campus, Title IX responsibilities, and she's going to tell us what the campus is going to do and what we have to do. Wendy.
Good morning, everyone. Do I need that, or can you hear me okay?
No, you have to go through here.
Okay, got it.
Because the other 75 people would not hear you.
Okay. Thank you. So as Aman mentioned, I'm here in my capacity as the Title IX officer for the UC Davis campus and UC Davis Health. Our office has lots of different responsibilities, particularly in the complaint handling processes, but we are the office on campus that is responsible for handling complaints of sexual harassment, sexual violence, and other kinds of harassment and discrimination. So this, sorry, let me just advance this slide here. No?
You might have to, sometimes you just have to click in this.
Okay, thank you. So why is NSF suddenly concerned about sexual harassment? As you know, sexual harassment has been a frequent... How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's picking you up.
Should we just keep going? Okay. So as you know, sexual harassment has been a frequent topic in the news. It seems like every day there's hashtag #MeToo article or some other article regarding a high-profile sexual harassment case. So of course, NSF was right to be concerned about this. They identified in the material that they put out regarding this new term and condition that they believe PIs and co-PIs are in a position of trust, and that they believe, that stopping sexual harassment takes a community effort, and that they think it's important for them as the primary funder of science and engineering research to be part of that community effort. And their materials also contained this quote, which is up on the screen. NSF will not tolerate sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, or sexual assault within the agency, at awardee organizations, field sites, or anywhere NSF-funded science and education is conducted. So as you can see, they're taking a pretty broad view of their reach in this situation. And it's fair to say that they believe their reach extends to anywhere, any conferences or workshops where NSF-funded research is discussed. So in terms of what the actual terms and conditions now say, there are two parts to this. So the first is that NSF-funded institutions are required to notify NSF of any finding that a PI or a co-PI has violated policies related to sexual harassment or sexual assault or other forms of harassment. So let's focus on the first part of that, which is that our requirement is that we notify them of a finding, which means we've conducted an investigation and we've substantiated that a PI or a co-PI has violated our policies. We get lots of reports of sexual harassment on our campus and other forms of harassment. We're not able to investigate all of them. Many of them are not sufficiently detailed to investigate, and others aren't of the nature that would rise to a policy violation, even if true. So this is just focusing on investigation findings. The requirement includes findings related to gender harassment or unwelcome sexual conduct, and also includes other types of harassment that would violate federal civil rights laws. So that would include things like race discrimination, national origin discrimination, age discrimination. I think you're familiar with the other kinds of legally protected forms of discrimination. We're also required to notify NSF if a PI or co-PI is placed on administrative leave because of one of these types of investigations, or if the institution has imposed any other kind of administrative action related to the investigation. And this term is not very clear to the university yet, and we are seeking clarity. As it's defined in the materials that NSF puts out, it says, administrative action includes actions imposed relating to teaching, advising, mentoring, research, management and administrative duties, and presence on campus. It's hard to imagine an administrative action that wouldn't fall into one of those categories, but hopefully we'll get some more clarity about that. So as Ahmad said, this new term and condition is already in effect. It went into effect on Sunday. It applies to all new awards issued on or after October 21st, as well as all funding amendments to existing awards on or after that date. And Ahmad already gave you a heads up about this. Even though this just became effective, if someone were to come forward now with an allegation of sexual harassment that predated October 21st, but the PI or co-PI has funding, that would now be within the reach of this term and condition. So our process in terms of handling this, as I mentioned, all complaints of sexual harassment are received by the Title IX office here on campus. If we determine that we need to do an investigation, we'll be working with academic affairs to identify whether the PI or co-PI who's the subject of the complaint is receiving NSF funding and whether that funding was effective on or after October 21st. We try to keep knowledge about these allegations as narrow as possible. As you can imagine, these are highly confidential matters, and we want to assure the people who are participating in the investigation that only those who have a need to know will know about the investigation and the allegations. At this point, we believe we're going to be checking on funding status through the NSF portal. But Ahmed, if we find that that's not effective, we'll be in touch and we'll work out another process.
Mm-hmm.
So then the investigation will be done as usual through the Title IX office. If there's a need to notify NSF, there's this language in their materials that the notification must be submitted by an authorized organizational representative. We haven't quite figured out who that's going to be yet. So I suspect that will probably be the Vice Provost of Academic Affairs or his designee, but we're still talking about that. And then there's this requirement that the notification go directly to the NSF Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And we have 10 days within making a finding or instituting an administrative action to submit that notice. Then there's this requirement for consultation between the authorized organizational representative and NSF. And from the materials NSF has put out, it appears that the focus of that consultation will be the safety and security of the NSF funded personnel, as well as the impact on the NSF funded activity while the investigation is pending. So some potential consequences that NSF might take. It's not necessarily true that they will take a consequence in every case, but they have said substitution or removal of a PI or co-PI is possible, as well as reduction in award funding or suspension or termination of the award. So in terms of more information, if you wanted to read more about this, I've provided you with links to some of the materials that NSF has put up, including the Federal Register posting. And then what's next? We don't expect NSF to be the only agency who implements these kinds of requirements. We're already hearing that NIH will go next, and I know we have far more NIH-funded investigators on our campus than NSF-funded investigators. So we'll keep you informed as we learn more about this. And then if you have any questions, here's my contact information, and I also included some links about our sexual violence and sexual harassment response programs on campus. Does anyone have any questions for me now?
Do the PIs, are they the prime award PIs, or would it like to flow through?
You want to repeat the question, please?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you want to?
Come on over.
Here, I'll give it to you.
I was just curious, the definition of PI, is that so if NSF has made an award to the University of Washington, and then the University of Washington subawards part of the agreement to us, we have a local UC Davis PI. Is that included in their definition of PI?
Yeah.
It sounds like Ahmed may know the answer better than I do.
I don't think I don't remember any
anything
discussion.
in the materials about that, so I can go back and look and let Ahmed know. Maybe between the two of us, we can consult on that and let everybody else know.
PI here would still have that same level.
I think that's the best way of reading what I know we have there. It's just whoever is our PI, regardless of if it is second tier, third tier. That's what I understand.
That makes sense. We would certainly err on the side of caution there.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Just 1 second. The question I have has to do with, I know that they said no new awards and starting from October 21st or continuations and so on and so forth. What would happen if an allegation comes in against a PI who is in the fifth year of an award and that October 21st, that date is not there. The award is here already, but it didn't get triggered by October 21st deadline. So what do you do then?
I mean, I think the argument is that the term and condition doesn't apply because it only applies to awards that were received on or after or amended on or after that date. I think we might still want to talk about it though, to say, is this, I mean, particularly if it's, an egregious violation, we should talk about whether we should still notify NSF.
Okay. You have online?
Online.
Just one. Can you read?
Do you want me just to repeat it?
Yes, I have to get up.
Okay.
Will your office be notifying PIs of this policy?
So my office would notify any PI who's accused of sexual harassment that we're conducting an investigation, but we have not been the office to notify about this policy. So Ahmed, is Office of Research issuing anything regarding
That's a
this
good
policy?
question. We didn't send anything on the listserv, I believe. We talked about it here, but we can talk about, maybe we can issue a joint message to the campus using our listserv. We can draft something based on this and whatever you want to say, and we would send it to the campus, definitely.
Okay, that would be great. I'm glad they asked that question.
Well, the department, you're right. The listserv doesn't have a whole lot of faculty members, but departments, when they receive them, they share them internally with their people. That's what they are supposed to do, and in most cases they do that. So that should be that should be good enough, I think. Unless if you want to send it to maybe even the list of academic senate members or researchers, or I don't know. I don't have that list, but we can put it together if it's
We can
needed.
talk to the
Okay.
academic senate perhaps about the best way to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
There was a recommendation to notify the police.
Okay. Thank you, Wendy.
you.
I appreciate it. Okay. So let's see. How about, the iCook? Maybe Grace and Whitney, they can talk about iCook. Grace is the associate director here, and Whitney comes from iCook area.
Right, good morning, everybody. I'm Grace Liu, and I have the first few slides. So Whitney Petrie and I will talk about congruency review this morning. Okay, that has to do with IACUC and sponsored programs. So if you have any animal subjects research going on, you're going to want to pay attention to this. Okay, so our overview is we're going to talk about what is congruency review. I know there's some questions about that. We will discuss what is it, and then how do you do it. And also we're going to talk about the previous IACUC congruency review process, the new IACUC congruency process, and then how SPO will coordinate with IACUC in their new process. Okay, the first topic is what is congruency review? Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, congruence is required per the NIH grants policy. Okay, the statement provides that the terms and conditions that must be met to receive a grant award. So it says, it is an institutional responsibility to ensure that the research described in the application is congruent with any corresponding protocols approved by IACUC. So think about what happens when you have animal subjects research. You apply to IACUC, right, to give you an approved protocol, and then you submit your grant to sponsored programs. So those two are kind of separate. They're two different offices. Your grant application and your protocol are two different documents. So congruency is to ensure that the two do not exist in their own separate spheres, that they overlap, that the animal subjects research approved by IACUC is indeed the same animal subjects research described in your grant. Okay, so how does one do the congruency review? Well, it's literally a side-by-side comparison between the grants and animal subjects and the animal protocol. And the things are going to be listed below, which I will get to in a second. So basically for NIH grants and most animal subjects research, I would say over 50% of it happens in NIH supported grants. So in NIH grants, the animal-related information can be found in the vertebrate animals section and the research strategy section. Okay, so for other funding agencies, the information can be found in the methods section that describes the animal work. I know this isn't comprehensive, but those are the main sections to look at. So the topics to compare during your congruency review is you look at the general scope of work. And then you look at the experimental procedures and endpoints. You look at the experimental agents to be applied to the animals. Look at the species and strains included, the approximate number of animals, and the euthanasia methods. Okay, so those need to match between the grant application and the animal protocol submitted to IACUC. Okay, so here are the agencies that require congruency review. I'm not going to name all of them. You can see that it is quite extensive. Most of them are under US Public Health Services agencies, but not all. There are some non-PHS organizations that have adopted those PHS regulations. So you can see what they are. And then in addition, Veterans Administration, Department of Defense, and UCOP programs, okay, UCOP programs. So you can see the entire list at the link below, all right. And now I will hand it over to Whitney.
Thank you, Grace. Good morning, everyone. My name is Whitney Petrie. I'm from the iCook office, and I'm going to start out by talking about the current process for congruency review. So currently this process is being done by iCook staff when a PI submits a protocol or an amendment, and that amendment or protocol lists newly funded or newly submitted NIH grant money. So what we do then is we take the grant and we take the animal protocol and we do the side-by-side comparison and check for congruency. But that's essentially where the process ended. There was no mechanism in place for SPO to then verify that a congruency check had been completed by our office. A couple of other reasons why we want to initiate a new process is that, so as I said, only protocols and amendments that list newly submitted or newly funded NIH grants were being, was a congruency check being performed for. So we weren't doing congruency checks for all of the other PHS funding agencies that require it. In addition, our iCook staff is limited and we just don't have the personnel to do congruency reviews for all of the agencies that require it. In addition, we do have scientific background. We can read our animal protocols and understand what's going on. But in terms of the content of the grant and being able to apply the science that's in the grant to the animal protocol, we really don't, we're not the best situated people to be doing that congruency check. Lastly, the PI truly is the best situated person to do the congruency check because they write their grant and they write their animal protocol and they know what is in each, so they can perform the congruency review. So due to the challenges that I described, moving forward, grant congruency will be the responsibility of the PI. So with the new process, we've updated the animal protocol form. This is section 10 of the protocol form. This is where the PI lists the funding agencies that cover the animal work in the protocol. And so what we've done is we've had IT add a CAIUS field. So now when a PI enters in all of their different funding agencies, they can also list the CAIUS numbers that are associated with each grant. Then once this animal care and use protocol is approved, then they would fill out SPO's protocol certification form, which Grace is going to tell you about.
Okay, so what you see on the screen is our new protocol certification form. So look at the section involving animal protocols. You will list your iCook protocols with the approval date, the expiration date, and then the PI is going to sign under that section. And you will, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but there is a word that says congruent in there. Okay, so by signing on that line, the PI is certifying that the protocol listed is congruent with the project described. Okay, the project is described above, title, project period. In the upper right-hand side, it's CAIUS SP protocol proposal number and CAIUS SP project number. So this way we are confirming that the iCook protocols are congruent with the CAIUS project number. Okay, this form will be live on the SPO forms page tonight at 5 p.m. So basically after the PI gets the approved protocol, either a new protocol or an amended protocol, they should sign this form and send it to SPO.
So there are a couple of situations of when a PI would need to complete a new SPO protocol certification form. So the first would be if a PI receives a new award and they don't have an iCook or an animal care and use protocol that describes the animal work in that grant. So in that case, they would need to submit a new animal care and use protocol, and then once it's approved, submit the SPO protocol certification form. The second situation would be if a PI already has an animal care and use protocol in place and gets a new award, and that animal work in the new award is already described in the protocol. So then what a PI would do would be submit an amendment to the IACUC office to add the funding agency and the CAIUS number to the existing animal protocol. In both situations, only after the protocol or the amendment is approved can the PI complete the SPO protocol certification form and then send it into the SPO office. We want to highly suggest that if you receive a high priority score for a grant, you submit an IACUC protocol as soon as possible. Right now, we're averaging about 6 weeks to turn a protocol around for approval. So if you get it in early, that's really helpful for us. As Grace said, the SPO form will be on their website. It will also be in section 10 of the Animal Care and Use Protocol instructions, so you can get to it that way. And it will also be in an SOP that we've created.
Okay, so Whitney just described when you would submit a new animal care protocol. And here at SPO, we are going to work with IACUC because now our systems make it possible for us to cross-reference each other. We were missing that piece before. After we get your signed protocol certification form, or actually, okay, let's just back up. Let's just say you get an award, okay? The SPO analysts now have the ability to check via our cross-linked website. The IACUC protocol number corresponds with the awarded grant, okay, listed by CAIUS number. So we are able to now look on one system, look at the protocol number and see the CAIUS award number, see the CAIUS project number. And we are also going to check in our saved internal folder, the PI has certified congruency by signing the protocol certification form. Okay, so those two are needed. You need to put your CAIUS number into their protocol, and you need to send us the protocol certification form. We will be looking for those two things. And here are the situations when we will be looking that those two things are done, that the CAIUS number is on the protocol website and that we have the protocol certification form. When we receive new funding, so that's a new award, or when we receive supplemental funding, okay? And also when we receive a grant amendment that amends the scope of work in any way. And please, in all of these cases, make sure that the IACUC protocol you have on file is up to date. If it needs to be amended in any way, let us know before we process the award.
So to help our PIs out, Grace and I have created an SOP, and the SOP outlines what congruency review is, who requires congruency review, so which funding agencies, how a PI would perform the congruency review, and then which situations would warrant a congruency review, and then how they submit it to SPO. The SOP will be posted on the IACUC homepage. It will also be in section 10 of the Animal Care and Use Protocol form. That's the granting section. And everything will be going live tonight. So all the changes will be applied tonight, and then moving forward, PIs will conduct the congruency reviews. If you have IACUC or animal related questions, you can contact me directly. If you can't get in touch with me, I've also listed our general office contact information. And if you have any SPO or awards related questions, please contact Grace. Does anybody have any questions about the new process?
What signatures,
Or what?
or what signatures required?
Or what signature is required? I'm going to say no. You can put your electronic signature on the PI certification form.
Hi, this is Elisa Bunn from the proposals team, and I just wanted to also mention that when we're certifying to NIH at JIT time, that you have a protocol in place, we also need this form. So even if you haven't received the award yet.
And advance accounts as well. I have another question from online. Will all grants listed on a protocol require adding the CAIUS numbers, or will the form allow you to submit the protocol without the CAIUS number? So this would only apply to animal care and use protocols moving forward. We're not going to retroactively add CAIUS numbers to all of our existing animal care and use protocols. We have about 1,400, so that would take a lot of work. There should be a CAIUS number for most grants, right, Grace? So if there is a CAIUS number associated with a grant, we want you to put it in. If there isn't one, you can still submit the protocol without it.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks. And so I'm Grace Liu, Associate Director of the awards side. Are there any awards related questions? I know September was a pretty busy month awards wise. Are there any awards questions online? Okay, well, you can email me if you have any awards questions.
Thank you, both of you. Okay, thank you. So this is a very important, obviously, compliance area. You want to make sure that your PIs are fully aware that we would not be able to issue the awards unless if these things are in place. That's extremely important. So, and as you heard, there's no transition period. It just, that's what we have to do starting from tomorrow morning, basically. We wouldn't be going back and forth trying to figure out what's happening, but the PIs have to make sure that the verifications come to us, so we will be able to continue issuing the awards as we are working on them. So again, if there are any questions on any of these things, please contact the two individuals who are working on them, or anybody in sponsored programs. Your proposals or awards people should be able to help you too, to tell you, answer your questions. So hopefully it would all work out. Let's see, I guess Francisco and James, you can decide who can go first and who wants to talk about what.
Francisco wants to go first.
Francisco wants to go first. Does he have presentations? Thank you.
Good morning. I am Francisco Andrade. I'm the Assistant Manager at Contracts and Grants Accounting. Recently, the sponsors have been putting new requirements of reporting and compliance issues. There was a presentation that NSF did on October 17 of something that many of us are not clear about, which is program income. Usually when you get an award, it mentions program income, but we are not very clear what is really program income. So this whole thing was driven by that now NSF requires that an annual program income report be submitted in November. And if you want information about it, it is in their proposal and award policies and procedures guide. So who is required to submit a report? Any institution of higher education or nonprofits that had an active award. during the current reporting period. It's no longer just the institutions that have had program income. It is all institutions. So in the reporting period is basically the federal calendar fiscal year. UCD is required to submit a report even if there is no program income earned during the period. CGA will complete the form using the information provided by the departments. Failure to complete the program income report may result in delay of future NSF award payment. And this is something that has changed in this world. That now what they're doing is, I won't pay you. You either do the report and report to us, or we won't let you be reimbursed. What is program income? Program income is gross income earned by the awardee, which in this case would be UCD, that is directly generated by a supported activity or earned as a result of NSF funding during the period of performance. This would include things such as fees for services performed, the use or rental of real property acquired under the grant. One of the things they pointed out on this aspect is if we get a grant and we use that grant to buy a piece of equipment, but the equipment is not used 100% of the time, and then we rent that equipment for somebody else to use it, that becomes program income. And this is one of the areas where people were surprised about. Because on the terms of the contract, who paid for the equipment was NSF. And since you are earning some income for renting that equipment out during the performance period of the award, we have to report that. The sale of commodities or items fabricated under the grant. We have here the case of the mutant mouse. We have the case of the primate center, but there might be other cases which we are not aware of. And it is important that the department let us know. Fees charged to register participants for a workshop or conference. NSF does fund many conferences. And sometimes sometimes the amount that is funded doesn't cover all the expenses of the conference. And the institution decides, I'm going to charge a fee for it. That fee becomes program income, and it has to be reported. How does NSF treat program income? Basically, the standard treatment is additive. And additive means that the income earned is to be retained by UCD and added to the funds committed to the project by NSF. And thus used for further project objectives. So if you get a grant for $100,000, in some way you have some program income and you earn $20,000, your award becomes $120,000. Effort should be made to avoid having excess program income at the end of the project. In general, program income should be expended prior to requesting reimbursement against the grant. So if I have earned $20,000, but at the same time I have posted in my fund, in my expense account, $20,000 of expenses, I should not request reimbursement for those $20,000 because those 20,000 would be covered by the program income. A special treatment may be added to notice of award. And there is one case that is a little more complicated, it's deductive. And deductive, they use it pretty frequently in conference grants. Deductive means that the program income must be remitted to NSF by crediting costs otherwise chargeable against the grant. So an example would be you set up a conference, you get $100,000, you charge a fee to participate in the conference, the award is deductive, and you get $15,000 from those fees. The award now, instead of being $100,000, it's only $85,000. And that implies that you have to read the awards from NSF carefully in this area, because sometimes they'll sneak that in, deductive. Okay. Basically, this is it. But what is important is that if you are aware of any source of program income in an award, please contact us in order for us to jointly monitor and report it. There is one award that the campus has that is kind of unusual because the terms that are used, you don't imagine that it's conference. That is a program income. It's an award that is for participation in a program. And each one, NSF is funding $500,000. But then each of the other participants, which are other educational institutions, contribute $50,000. That contribution is treated as program income and has to be reported. So several years went by without reporting, and we caught on to it by accident. Let's not have an issue of compliance in this area because they are threatening. They won't stop paying us. Mm-hmm. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, so the question from online is, must program income be reported if it was used to partially offset departmental non-sponsored expenses? If so, how does this mesh with the NSF prohibition on voluntary cost share?
Remember, if you go back to the slide, oops. Okay. That one. It basically says income earned is to be retained by the grantee and added to the funds committed to the project, and thus used to further project activities. So if those funds are being used to cover departmental expenses that are not associated with the project objectives, that is not allowable. So we also have to be careful where we use that. Program income can be used to pay for expenses that are associated with furthering the project objectives. But it cannot be used for any other thing. You might use it, it might post to the departmental account because you have to hire a temporary person for a conference to help with the registration and the administrative activities. That would be allowable. But in those cases, we should set up an expense account that clearly separates those expenses from general departmental expenses.
To clarify that cost share is not program income. Program income is not a cost share.
Okay, thank you, James. Cost share is independent of program income. So just because you have cost share, it doesn't mean program income. And also, just because you have program income in an award, it is not cost share. Cost share is a different type of commitment that an institution does when they accept an award. That they are going to take money from other sources to fund the activities of that award.
Okay. Thank you. Well, the way I understand this, I mean, Francisco showed us examples of what is program income and what should be reported. The bottom line is that the way to think about it is that you get an award from the awardee, I mean the grantee or grantor, sorry. We get an award for X number of dollars. If associated with that, any more money comes in, you sell something, you rent something, whatever you do with under that award, you raise some money from somewhere else. This is not cost sharing, that's completely different. If you raise money, that's program income. That's why it is. It's just, that's the way to think about it. There was a list of 4 or 5 items there that Francisco, you showed on the slide. That's not necessarily an exhaustive list. So if you raise money anyway, that's program income. And now once it's program income, it takes the character of the award itself. So whatever the award is allowing you to do, you can do with that program income and nothing more than that. So that's really the bottom line. You raise money, it's program income, it becomes a part of the award and it has to be used for the award. That's the simple way I can think about it. Right, James?
Yeah, that's right.
Good. So I got it.
You got it.
So James, what do you want to give us an update on?
Hi, good morning. James Ringo, Manager of Contracts and Grants Accounting. Hello, everybody. I just want to go through the, schedule for our impending effort reporting cycle. We're right here at that wonderful time of the year where we're going to start generating effort reports pretty soon and trying to get them certified. So I just want to go through the dates real quick, see if you have any questions. The information will be updated on our website and will be emailed to the ERS coordinators as well. So that just to give you a heads up, basically. So for the first week or so of November, that's the time that you should be looking at making sure that your permissions are set up correctly. The right people have access to the effort reporting system and can get in when it's time to get in and do things. Similarly, you can be looking to see if you have your PIs are subscribed to the right lists, the My Projects list, the My Certifications list, all of those tools that are available in the effort reporting system. The let's see. There have been no updates, no upgrades to ERS this year, so it's the same as it was last year. So there aren't any new bells or whistles that you need to know about. Just use the same functionality that's been there. Also, the first week or week and a half of November, you probably want to think about getting some meetings together with your faculty to figure out just to discuss where you are, what the expected effort's going to be, especially if you've got PIs that are, off-site, hard to reach, on sabbatical. Let's see. So a key date is November 13th. On November 13th, we will have generated the effort reports, and we will let the coordinators know that they're ready to go in and take a look and review and do whatever pre-work you want to do with them in reviewing them. Then on November 15th, that's the date we will send the notice out broadly to let everybody know, including the PIs, that the effort reports are ready for certification. The due date is January 28th. So, it's a pretty big window. What usually happens is right when we release them, there's a lot of activity that happens. And then when the holidays roll in, everybody forgets about effort reports. So then we have a little bit more effort that we have to do when we come back from the holidays in January to refocus and get those effort reports in. Remember that uncertified effort is unallowable. And when we get past the January 28th date, any uncertified effort, we will start communicating and saying, you got to move the salary off. It's being disallowed. So you want to not have that. Let's see, is there another date? Going through the certification period, we will send periodic updates lists to the administrators to let you know what you still have open. Again, January 28th is the end of the certification period. And then after that, it's cleanup and trying to figure out what else is going on. That's a quick recap of what's coming up. Any questions, thoughts? Okay. I think it's pretty routine at this point. We've been doing it for years and years. That is all I have to update from my side of Research Park Drive. All right, thank you. Happy holidays.
I'm sure they have questions for you. No? No questions. Okay, any general questions from anybody, either here or online?
So more of a comment than a question, but we've been noticing in our ledger reviews, the monthly, that the CBR composite benefit add-on is being charged on the DS2 report, but not on the DS339. And so we're not sure why that is. It's being put on a sub 6 or the CBR is a sub 6, and so it should be payroll related, and it's kind of showing up like it's not because it's not on that 339, and so I'm not quite sure.
Can you just send me an example?
Could you get the microphone and answer, please?
If you send me an example, I can take a look and see what is happening and get back with you on, on what we need to fix. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for James? Anything online? Cassie? Remember, this is your last chance this year. Next time would be January. Going first, going second. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in January. Bye-bye.